The road stretched endlessly beneath the scorching afternoon sun, a ribbon of red dust winding through the heart of a forgotten land. The air shimmered like heat-off metal, and the faint smell of burning wood drifted from distant huts. A rickety bus rattled along that lonely road, filled with the laughter and chatter of university students. They were from Lagos State University, final-year students from the Department of Anthropology, heading for their field project in a remote village called Aje. The village was known for its untouched traditions, its ancient customs and whispers of strange spiritual tales. At the front of the bus sat Professor Iwela, their supervisor, a calm, soft-spoken man with silver hair and patient eyes. Behind him, a dozen students crammed together, some singing, others dozing. But near the back, one voice rose above the rest, loud, confident and dripping with arrogance. Tunde Detala, 23. Brilliant, outspoken and impossibly proud. To many Tunde was a genius. Top of his class, always debating lecturers, always proving someone wrong. But behind that brilliance was something darker, pride that burned like fire, feeding on every compliment, every small victory. "Guy, I beg," said Deo, his friend and roommate, laughing as he scrolled through his phone. "You don't have to argue with everything. Let the professor breathe." Tunde smirked. "I'm not arguing. I'm just saying, there's nothing supernatural about these village stories. Spirits? Curses? All psychological conditioning. Simple." "Still," Deo said, leaning back, "this place we're going, they said the villagers don't joke with their customs." "Exactly my point," Tunde cut in. "They're trapped in fear. Superstition is the enemy of progress. When I finish this project, I'll prove that all those so-called spirits are just myth." The bus hit a bump, jolting everyone. "Jesus!" someone shouted from the back. Professor Iwela looked up from his notebook. "Careful with your words, Tunde. Respect is part of learning too." Tunde only smiled. "Of course, sir," he said, his tone polite, but his eyes gleamed with that same unshakable confidence. Hours later, the bus rolled into Aje Village. It was a quiet place, red earth roads lined with mud houses, palm trees swaying lazily, and children playing barefoot with tires. Old women sat under mango trees, plaiting hair and murmuring in Yoruba. Men with weathered faces waved as the bus passed. They finally stopped at the village square, where a group of elders awaited them. At the center stood Chief Ogunlana, the village head, tall, dignified, with eyes that seemed to see more than what was before him. "Welcome our children," the chief said in Yoruba-accented English. "Aje greets you. May your stay bring peace." The students clapped politely. Professor Iwela bowed slightly. "We're honored to be here, sir. We're here to learn about your history, your festivals, your gods." The chief nodded slowly. "Then you must also learn respect, for things you cannot see but which see you." Tunde rolled his eyes quietly. Deo nudged him, whispering, "Oh boy, behave." After brief introductions, the students were shown to their lodge, an old colonial building on the edge of the village, near a forest path. Its walls were cracked but sturdy, its windows covered in mosquito nets, its floors dusty but cool. Inside, laughter filled the rooms as they unpacked, taking selfies, joking about the village life they were about to endure. But that night, the laughter began to fade. The first dinner was hosted by the villagers in the open square. There was pounded yam, palm wine, and grilled fish seasoned with pepper that burned deliciously. Drums played softly, and the air smelled of smoke and laughter. An elderly woman named Mama Folake, the village storyteller, began to speak as night deepened. "This land," she said, her voice slow and heavy, "is older than the river that feeds it. The spirits of our ancestors live in the Aje Grove, the sacred forest beyond the hill. It is where the gods walk at night." A hush fell over the students. Even the villagers grew quiet. "No one enters the grove," Mama Folake continued, "unless summoned for cleansing or sacrifice. Those who enter with pride in their hearts never return the same." A few of the students glanced at one another nervously. Tunde leaned back, smirking. "With all due respect, Ma," he said, "there's no scientific evidence of spirits. Maybe people just get lost in the forest and blame it on the supernatural." The villagers gasped quietly. The drums stopped. Mama Folake's wrinkled eyes turned to him. "Science may teach you how to build, child," she said softly, "but it cannot teach you humility." The chief's voice cut through the silence. "Respect our ways, young man. In Aje, words have power." Tunde bowed his head, but his smirk never faded. Inside he was amused. These people still fear trees and wind. I'll show them what's real. That night, in their lodge, the students gathered around a dim lantern, laughing and replaying the moment. Guy, Deo said, shaking his head, you almost got us kicked out. Tund chuckled. Come on, Deo. Someone has to bring sense to this place. Spirits? Please. They should thank me for exposing the truth. Still, said Rita, the class rep, be careful. These people take tradition seriously. You can't just insult their beliefs. Who said I insulted them? Tund replied, his tone sharp. I just spoke the truth. He stood up, looking out the window at the dark forest beyond the hill, where the moonlight barely touched the trees. His eyes narrowed. Tomorrow, he said quietly, I'll go there myself. Let's see if the spirits will show themselves to me. The room fell silent. Don't joke like that, Rita said quickly. I'm not joking, Tund replied. It's just a forest. But they said it's forbidden, Deo muttered. Tund turned, his face lit by the flickering lantern. Exactly. That's what makes it perfect. I'll prove that fear lives only in the mind. No one spoke again for a long while. Outside, the crickets chirped endlessly, and the wind whispered through the palm leaves. Somewhere in the distance, a faint drumbeat echoed, slow and hollow. And though none of them admitted it aloud, every student in that lodge felt it. The air in Age was different. Heavy. Watching. Morning broke with a sky streaked in orange and gold. The students woke to the crowing of roosters and the distant rhythm of pestles pounding yam. A thin mist clung to the trees as the smell of wood smoke drifted through the air. Tund was already outside, camera in hand, snapping pictures of the sunrise. He looked out toward the forest beyond the hill, a wall of green that shimmered beneath the early light. Still thinking about that place? Deo asked, stepping out behind him, yawning. Tund smiled without turning. Thinking? I'm going. This is anthropology, my guy. We study culture and myths. What better way to understand fear than to face it? Deo frowned. Bro, the chief said nobody enters the grove. You want to disrespect them? I want to enlighten them, Tund said, raising his chin slightly. Someone has to. Rita came out next, her hair wrapped in a scarf, carrying her notebook. Tund, please don't do anything stupid. We just got here. Professor Iwela won't like it. But Tund only grinned. Relax, class rep. I'll take a walk, snap a few photos and come back before lunch. No harm done. Rita sighed, sensing the futility of arguing with him. Once Tund set his mind on something, not even reason could move him. After breakfast, the students split into groups for their fieldwork. Some interviewed villagers about ancient marriage rites, others studied the architecture of the mud houses. The atmosphere was lively, filled with curiosity and laughter. Tund's group was assigned to document the village's oral traditions. They met under a large baobab tree where elders told stories of the old gods. Hogan, the god of iron, Obatala, the god of creation, and Age, the goddess of wealth and vengeance, from whom the village took its name. One of the elders, a wiry old man with eyes sharp as glass, told them a story that caught everyone's attention. In the days before your fathers were born, the old man said, there was a hunter named Alawo, proud and strong. He mocked the spirits, saying his strength came only from himself. One day he entered the Age Grove to prove he feared nothing. When he did not return, the trees began to whisper his name at night. His footprints never faded, and to this day no one dares to walk his path. The students sat in silence. The wind whistled softly through the leaves above. Then Tund chuckled. So the forest ate him? The old man's eyes hardened. The forest remembers those who mock it. Rita quickly changed the subject, asking about harvest rituals, but the tension lingered. As they packed up their notes, the old man leaned closer to Tund. Child, he said quietly, you carry pride like armor. But remember, even the lion bows to the earth before it strikes. Tund gave a polite nod but walked away muttering, fairy tales and riddles, nothing more. That evening, clouds gathered over the village, painting the sky gray. The wind grew restless, tossing leaves across the dusty square. At dinner, Professor Iwela addressed the group. Tomorrow we'll visit the shrine at the edge of the village. You'll observe, not interfere. Respect their space. Tund raised a hand. Sir, are we also studying the Age Grove? The professor frowned. No. That area is sacred. We observe boundaries. But sir, Tund pressed, wouldn't it be beneficial to investigate the origin of their myths? A grove like that could reveal historical artifacts. Professor Iwela's voice turned firm. No one enters the grove. That's final. The air around the table grew tense. Deo shot Tund a warning look, but Tund only smiled faintly, swirling his cup of palm wine. Later that night, while others joked around the lantern, Tund sat apart, scrolling through the pictures on his camera. Sunsets, children playing, market stalls. But his gaze kept drifting toward the hill outside the window, dark and silent. He whispered to himself, "I'll show them tomorrow." It came just before midnight. Deo woke suddenly to a cold wind brushing across his face. The lantern had gone out and the room was drowned in darkness. He turned, confused, and froze. At the window stood a shadow. Tall. Motionless. Watching. "Who's there?" Deo whispered. The figure didn't move. Then, slowly, it raised an arm and pointed toward the forest. Deo sat up, his heart pounding. He blinked and the figure was gone. "Jesus Christ," he breathed, shivering. He reached for his phone, switching on the flashlight. The window rattled gently, though the night outside was still. He didn't sleep again. By morning he looked pale. "Tund," he said as they ate, "I swear someone was outside the window last night." Tund laughed. "You probably saw your reflection. Too much pepper soup before bed." "I'm serious, man," Deo insisted. It pointed toward the forest. Rita looked up sharply. "That's not funny." "Funny?" Tund said, smirking. "Maybe it was your spirits sending me an invitation." "Tund?" Rita snapped. "Can't you stop mocking everything?" He shrugged. "I'm just not afraid of bedtime stories." The rest of the group exchanged uneasy glances. Even Professor Iwela seemed quieter that morning, glancing often toward the hill. By afternoon, the students were supposed to compile their notes and rest. Instead, Tund slipped away quietly, camera in hand, his steps deliberate. Deo saw him leaving and called out, "Where are you going?" Tund paused, turned slightly and smiled. "To meet the spirits." Deo's eyes widened. "You can't be serious." "Relax," Tund said, slinging the camera around his neck. "I'll be back before dinner. Don't tell anyone." Before Deo could stop him, Tund was already walking down the dirt path leading out of the village. The air grew thicker as he approached the edge of the forest. The sunlight dimmed beneath the tall trees. Birds scattered suddenly, and the forest floor crackled beneath his boots. He stopped at a small wooden sign, half buried in moss, that read, "Aje Grove, keep away." Tund raised his camera. Click. The shutter echoed faintly. "Beautiful," he murmured. "So much mystery for nothing." He stepped past the sign. Back at the lodge, Deo paced restlessly. An hour passed. Then two. Rita noticed his worry. "What's wrong?" Tund went to the grove, he said in a low voice. Rita's face drained of color. "He what?" "I tried to stop him. He said he'll be back." "Oh my God." Rita grabbed her sandals. "We need to tell the professor." They ran to find Professor Iwela, who immediately gathered two villagers. Chief Ogunlana joined them, his expression dark. "You say he entered the grove?" the chief asked. "Yes, sir," Rita stammered. "We didn't know until—" The chief raised a hand. "Enough. We must pray." He ordered everyone to stay inside. A group of elders began chanting quietly, sprinkling white powder at the entrance of the lodge. The professor tried to remain calm, but his face was tense. "What happens if he doesn't return?" Rita whispered. The chief looked at her gravely. "The grove decides." Meanwhile, deep in the forest, Tund kept walking. The air was cool, damp with the scent of earth and decay. Shafts of sunlight pierced through the canopy, falling on carved stones and decaying statues. Strange symbols lined the trunks of trees, glowing faintly in the dim light. He stopped before a circular clearing. In its center stood a small shrine, made of wood and bone, with a mask resting atop it. The mask was carved with perfect symmetry, its eyes empty, its lips curved into an eternal smirk. Tund approached slowly, fascinated. "So this is your forbidden grove, huh?" he murmured, pulling out his camera. Click. He took several photos, circling the shrine. Then, impulsively, he reached out and touched the mask. For a moment, nothing happened. The air was silent. Then the ground trembled slightly beneath his feet. The wind picked up, swirling leaves around him. From somewhere deep within the forest, a whisper drifted, long drawn out and echoing his name. Tund. He froze, heart racing. "Who's there?" No answer. Only the rustling of branches, and that whisper again, closer this time. Tund. The mask shifted. Not much, just a tilt as if something unseen had moved it. Tund stumbled back, his camera falling to the dirt. The shutter clicked by itself once, twice, before the lens cracked. And then the forest went still. Utterly still. When Tund finally stumbled out of the grove an hour later, his shirt was torn, his face pale, and his eyes wide with disbelief. He didn't speak. Not when his friends rushed to him. Not when the chief demanded to know what he saw. He only whispered one thing before collapsing. They're real.